Yes, indeed, folks, listen to Blue Please here on WoW Radio with the rather hoarse and somewhat in pain Total Biscuit. Never mind it, never mind, the show must go on. Well, one point in it is, of course, the amount of discussion today. Now, the next topic on the agenda, and the one that's been causing quite a bit of controversy, instant melee attack changes. So, what is the instant melee attack change? Now, I shall read this off the patch notes and see what you make of it. The mechanics of most instant melee attacks have been modified to improve item balance. Previously, instant melee attacks did damage based on the damage range of the weapon, plus a bonus for the player's attack power. This bonus was then multiplied by the speed of the weapon. As a result, slow weapons did more damage than was intended, and fast weapons were considered inferior by most players. We have changed the way the attack power bonus is calculated for instant attacks. This change does not affect attack power calculations for normal melee attacks. Instead of multiplying by the speed of the weapon, the attack power bonus is now multiplied by a fixed number pulled from the following table. And the table says this: two-handed weapons get a value of 3.3, daggers get a value of 1.7, all other one-handed weapons 2.4. And the way Blizzard have worked this out is so. As a direct result of this, many weapons have shifted position in their relative power, and particularly many epic, purple quality items, are now more powerful than slower, superior blue items. This change was not made to reduce the power of instant attacks, but to correct the relative imbalance of weapon itemization. At a given level requirement, epic quality weapons should always be more powerful than superior quality weapons. Please note that all normal weapon swings will be completely unaffected by this damage. The following abilities are affected by the design change: Sinister Strike, Ambush, Backstab, Whirlwind, Mortal Strike, and Overpower. So, what does that mean for melee players? It's reasonably obvious what they are actually referring to when they say there was a relative imbalance between blue items and purple items. They mean, effectively, the Arcanite Reaper and, of course, the Barman Shanker. The staple weapons of choice for many warriors and rogues. Now, the reason everyone goes for the Arcanite Reaper, other than the fact that it has a malicious amount of attack power on it and a very high maximum damage, is its speed. For a Mortal Strike build, bearing in mind that a Mortal Strike build with an axe will give you an extra 5% chance to crit, it is vicious. For your highest value Mortal Strike, which is really what you need when you're fighting, say, a mage, who you may only get 2 hits on, you want those 2 hits to count. Which is why you go for the Mortal Strike build. You get your Arcanite Reaper, you hit them, you hope to crit. If you crit, you take a vast chunk of their health off. And that's how it works. Now, do that with a slower weapon and it will not work. On the basis that you hit them and you don't hit them as hard. You don't have the stopping power. And against a blinking frost mage, such as myself, you don't stand a hope in hell if you don't get within the required distance to hit me. And I will not let you. I will try my damnedest to keep you the hell away from me until you die. But if I let you through, and you have a good Mortal Strike build, and you had an Arcanite Reaper, and you hit me hard with Mortal Strike, BAM! Massive amount of damage. Now, that's why the Arcanite Reaper is, of course, the weapon of choice for that particular build. The Unstoppable Force, not quite as good. Why? Because mace builds do not give you the extra crit chance. Mace builds give you a chance to stun, which is nice, but it's not the same thing. And they're after the crits. That is the entire purpose of it. Now, the Barman Shanker is similar. The principle is the same. Big crits and big hits. And the reason, of course, it can do that is its high maximum damage and its slow speed. Why can it do that? Now, from a base perspective, the weapons aren't as good. You look at it, it's like, yeah, this is a nice weapon, but it's not complete and total domination. It's when you start adding the attack power that it gets unpleasant, because the attack power is multiplied by the speed. This is the argument people made with the Ice Barbed Spear, for instance, when there was a bit of controversy over that. They said, oh, this is comparable to an Arcanite Reaper. Indeed, I actually did say that. when you actually look at it, that is not the case, simply due to the way attack power is multiplied. The imbalanced spear, as people will call it, has a speed of 3.6. The Arcanite Reaper has a speed of 3.8. Attack power, times by that for bonus, You can blatantly see which is going to get the better one. So, say if you had an attack speed of 4 on a weapon, that would be very good for a build which effectively emphasised attack power. And many do, because that's where your damage comes from. The same as casters use spell damage, melee classes use attack power. So what's going to happen after this? Now, the first question I was asked by someone when I was discussing this, asked by someone from my guild, was, well, do you feel any sympathy for those who have an Arcanite Reaper, a Barman Shanker? The answer is simply, not really. It's not a nerf to the Arcanite Reaper. It's not designed to nerf the Arcanite Reaper. This change is designed to make a lot of weapons which are totally and completely worthless actually worth using again. Now, I don't know about you, but in my opinion, variety is the spice of life. And it's certainly the spice of e-life here on World of Warcraft. I don't want to see every warrior and their mother running around with an Arcanite Reaper. It's boring. It's dull. And where a game where equipment is everything, it becomes duller still. It's not a concept that I think should be encouraged. To be honest, in my opinion, the more different weapons, the more different builds, the more different possibilities, the better this game is going to get. And when everyone's running around with an Arcanite Reaper or a Barman Shanker, that's not going to happen. So, what we may be seeing after this is stuff like the Typhoon, the Blade of Hannah, for instance, and the Brain Hacker would be an example. An axe which is far too fast. It has a nice proc, but it's too quick. So you would never use it in your attack power multi-strike build because you don't get enough of a bonus from it. The Brain Hacker is going to actually be a force to be reasonably reckoned with. Now, whereas the Brain Hacker used to be a bit of a joke, I know it was the first, yes it was in fact the first epic ever found on our server. And people say, ooh, purple! Actually, this sucks. It's too fast for an axe. I can't do my mortal strike build because it's too quick. And I don't get the proper multiplier from the attack power. The same with the Typhoon, a very nice weapon. The Blade of Hannah, a very nice weapon. Unfortunately, all of these weapons are worthless in that particular capacity. They are too fast. There are also daggers, which are similar to this. There are swords, which are similar to this. There are main-hand swords, which are far too quick. Now, this sweeping change, and that is what it is a very large sweeping change, is hopefully going to correct that imbalance. Now, no one complains about attack speed when just attacking normally. That's irrelevant, because that's not where your big hits come from. Your big hits come from your big attacks, your eviscerates, your ambushes, your backstabs, mortal strike, that kind of thing. And that's the idea of this change. And I personally am in full support of it. Now, I'm going to admit freely that I am not a warrior. I'm not a melee player. I have a warrior, but he's not very high level. He's only 25. I can't comment on mortal strike builds because I don't have it. However, a lot of my mates have it. A lot of my guild mates have it. And they, in general, looked at it with a little bit of hostility, but realised quite fast that this was a change for the benefit of the game. The Arcanite Reaper itself is not going to get nerfed as such. Because you've got to bear in mind that it's not a nerf to you specifically. It is, if you want to call it, a nerf to everyone. It's a nerf to pretty much every rogue on the planet and any reasonable arms mortal strike build warrior. Now, you can say, well, yeah, I spent all this money on an Arcanite Reaper. Yes, you did, and it's still going to be a formidable weapon. And you never know. Maybe they might look back and say, well, to be honest, that change has nerfed the Arcanite Reaper a little bit too much, So we'll give it some extra things. Give it a bit of crit chance, for instance. That would be nice. No, I don't think it should be considered a blanket nerf. It isn't. It's an attempt to push variety in the game. And there isn't enough of it. You've got to bear in mind, which is more important to you? Is it your Zoro MG, I win button, ooh, look at the axe, bang, bang, slash, slash, is that important? Or is the health of the game important? The health of the game should be the priority. The game will survive on the basis of variety and keeping people interested. How can you be interested when you have a weapon which pretty much dominates everything else, and the only better weapons you're going to get are the occasional drop from Molten Core? Now, the Arcanite Reaper is comparable to MC drops. It is comparable to some Zolgorov drops. Admittedly, there are better weapons around. The Spinal Reaper is a better weapon. Spinal Reaper is also a 3% drop of Ragnaros. So, the words attainable do not really apply in this case. Blind luck and enough DKP, or whatever system your guild uses, would be the order of the day. It does not sit well with me that a weapon that is relatively easily craftable can be comparable to so many other epic quality weapons. And as far as I'm concerned, that is what Blizzard has said as well. And I agree with them. This is the way they designed the game to be. There was supposed to be a clear difference between common, uncommon, superior, rare, legendary, and of course artifact when we eventually get one. So, I don't know what you lot think about this. Feel free to email any kind of comment to themurloc@gmail.com and I shall read it out and we can discuss it. But I am in complete and total favour of this change. Whether or not it's an balance change, and whether or not it is a change which we can say, yes, that was a very good idea, that was a universally fantastic plan, is questionable. However, don't knock it till you tried it. Okay. Now, there is a feature that we like to call "It's working, yeah, it's working as intended, baby." Yes, it is disturbing, and it is working as intended here on Blue Please on WoW Radio. And the idea behind work as intended is we take an idea that Blizzard have not necessarily managed to fix, and see if we can fix it ourselves, see what we can come up with. Now, the last few weeks we've been going over ideas as regards to more sort of theoretical things, more broader concepts rather than specific issues. Now, this week, I would like you to try and solve something which, in my opinion, has been a big problem for quite some time. It's called the resistance system. Resistances. You all know them. If you're a mage, you definitely hate them. The idea of the resistance system is, of course, to give you some way of stopping the full damage of a spell, or stopping a spell completely. Bearing in mind that, of course, spells go straight through armour. That's what resistances are for. They are also for instance, specific mobs will have certain resistances. You find that many of the mobs in Molten Core have some fire resistance, or may be completely immune. Whereas, for instance, were you to use ice on Azuragus, you would be buggered, because his resistance is so high that he is totally immune to it. The main problem with resistances, and something I will be coming on to after the break with the whole Warlock changes, is that the resistance system is not very good. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Now, there are degrees of imbalance in the resistance system, and the most obvious would of course be the Warlock's curses and the ability to Shadowbolt crit for 5,500 health. Now, this is rare, and it requires a specific build, but it is quite possible. Now, the main problem is this is possible, therefore instead of changing the resistance system, what Blizzard have effectively gone and done is they have nerfed Warlocks quite severely, in the fact that they have nerfed the damage bonuses from Ruin, which is a talent which allows an increase in critical strike damage. Now, in my opinion, this was not a very good idea. Warlocks are already aware that they have been nerfed to hell, etc., etc., that their class is broken, all that blah blah blah, whatever they may think. But what Blizzard have not done is fix the primary problem, which is, in my opinion, the resistance system itself. It's not very good. You can't be immune, for instance, to specific kinds of magic. It doesn't matter how much fire resistance your tank has got, for instance, Ragnaros' fire attacks are still going to hurt you. Whereas a mob can become completely immune. Resistances are very random. Rather than decreasing a specific amount from an attack every time, which would make sense to a degree, you have a random system where it may be resisted, it may not be resisted, it may be partially resisted. The value is pulled out of thin air. And of course the whole negative resistance system of a random chance of a 100% damage bonus or whatever stacked with whatever the Warlocks get causes problems. I want to know what you would do with the resistance system. How would you change the resistance system to be more balanced and make more basic sense? So, I want to hear from you. TheMurloc@gmail.com is of course the place to send your suggestions. The Murloc, that is one word, at gmail.com. How would you change the resistance system? Humdy hum. Right, okay, I think it's time for me to go for a break. My voice is rapidly running out, but I'll try and go on for as long as I possibly can. You're listening to Blue Please here on WoW Radio. And I think it's time to play a song. What song? Questionable. A little bit of Iron Maiden. It's classic. It's live. It's Hallowed Be Thy Name.